Chapter 330. Elvis kissed Gumingming's little head before carrying her on his shoulders. He leaped onto the platform of the deity's punishment and turned around to face his tribesmen. Leah had unknowingly appeared beside Elvis and stood one step behind him. He kept his joking expression and was focused and serious. Gu Mingming did not know what had happened and was about to ask when she saw Leah suddenly kneeling on one knee and placing his right hand on his left chest. He lowered his head in a submissive posture and said, "Saint Nazir, witch doctor Leah, leading the tribesmen to provide for the arrival of the messenger of the beast deity. We are willing to be commanded by the mighty messenger to fight for you even if our bones are crushed. We are willing to die 1,000 times for you. We are willing to fight for you even if our bones are crushed. We are willing to die 1,000 times for you. We are willing to fight for you even if our bones are crushed. We are willing to die 1,000 times for you." Gu Mingming looked at the situation in front of her with a dumbfounded expression. She thought to herself, could it be that I should say, "Everyone, please rise"? Or should I say, "My beloved concubine, please rise"? Elvis raised his hand and the crowd immediately quietened down. Gu Mingming lowered her head and looked at Elvis with a face full of question marks. Elvis looked up and met Gu Mingming's gaze. He said, "Before winter, Leah had already announced your identity to the tribe. So the first thing after the first hunt in spring is to swear loyalty to you." Gu Mingming smiled awkwardly and asked in a small voice, "Then, what should I say?" Elvis held onto Gu Mingming's little hand and kissed it. He said, "Allow us to swear loyalty to you and protect your honor as the messenger of the beast deity." Gu Mingming's lips twitched. Her smile was uglier than crying. Was she going to be a despot now? Could she reject him? Everyone was so familiar with each other and it felt weird to be worshipped like this. Leah looked at Gu Mingming and could not help but smile. Gu Mingming glared at Leah and thought to herself, "Why didn't you remind me just now if you knew this would happen?" But she could not flare up in front of everyone. She could only grit her teeth and said, "Although I am the messenger of the beast deity, I am also the Gu Mingming that everyone is familiar with. Thank you for not abandoning me and receiving everyone's support. I will do my best to lead everyone to a better life." Gu Mingming broke out in cold sweat for herself. Luckily, she had been elected as a class monitor in high school, so she could change a few sentences from her script and use it here. "Thank you, messenger, for your kindness." Leah took the lead again. After 3 chants, everyone slowly stood up. Gu Mingming heaved a sigh of relief and patted Elvis's arm, signaling him to put her down. Elvis changed his position and hugged her in his arms. He whispered into her ear, "Don't get down, it's cold." Gu Mingming smiled and nodded. The eyes of the entire tribe were focused on her. Such a small action was so intimate and sweet that she could not help but feel shy. Leah took a step forward and said, "Great messenger, regarding the selection of the guardian." Gu Mingming was stunned and asked, "What guard?" "The messenger of the beast deity should have 2 guardians on the left and right. They are in charge of conveying the messenger's orders and executing some special arrangements. The great messenger knows all the warriors in the tribe. Is there anyone you like?" Leah was still smiling warmly, but Gu Mingming could clearly see a trace of slyness in his eyes. F*******. He did it on purpose. Gu Mingming recalled the situation when Leah made her lie on the side of the plate to teach her son how to drink the bone soup. Aside from the topic, "Thank you, little darling from Xiaoxiang Academy, WayXN 16 CF 33A021, for voting 4 monthly votes. I love you." Chapter 331. Gu Mingming said helplessly, "Just you and Elvis. Left guard, right guard, that's pretty good." But Leah shook his head and said with a face full of regret, "Although I really want to have more opportunities and more reasons to stay by your side, but the witch doctor and tribe leader cannot be the left and right guards. This is to prevent someone from having too much power and being biased when executing the mighty messenger's orders." Gu Mingming's head hurt a little. Although she knew almost everyone in the tribe, she could not name many of them. Rubbing her eyebrows, Gu Mingming turned to look at Elvis and said, "Hubby, you make the arrangements, all right?" Elvis's heart ached a little. He did not want Gu Mingming to be involved in these troublesome matters, but her identity meant that these troubles were just the beginning and he could not stop it. Kissing Gu Mingming's forehead, he said helplessly, "I can't interfere with matters within the scope of the divine authority." "What do you mean?" Gu Mingming said with a bitter face, "Speak human language." Elvis was amused by Gu Mingming's sullen look. Others all dreamed of becoming the messenger of the beast deity. He had seen quite a few who swindled others, but none of them could put on airs better than Gu Mingming, as if they could get whatever they wanted, and look down on everyone else. But Gu Mingming, the genuine messenger of the beast deity, had no feelings towards the divine authority. It was as if the authority of the messenger of the beast deity was not as satisfying as a roasted sweet potato in the cave. The messenger of the beast deity has the right to dictate. Strictly speaking, Leah and I are your subordinates first, then your partners and beast pet. Gu Mingming slapped Elvis's chest and said fiercely, "Why are you talking about beast pet too? Can you not mention this anymore?" Elvis nodded and said, "Yes, my mighty messenger." Gu Mingming was a little impatient with this bureaucratic idea, so she pointed at Sandy and said, "Then Sandy and Maya, let them be my guards. They can help me coax my sons when they are free, that's pretty good." Leah whispered into Gu Mingming's ear, "The guards must be males, because they have to become the messenger's claws and fangs, as well as her shield and armor. Sandy and Maya are too weak. They'll be killed." Gu Mingming swung her arms in annoyance and looked at Leah. "I can't do this and I can't do that. Why don't you give me a few candidates?" But Leah took another step back and looked at Gu Mingming innocently, saying, "Even the first partner can't interfere with the religious authority. I'm just a beast pet, and an unloved beast pet at that. What right do I have to make irresponsible remarks? If you continue spouting nonsense, I will pull out your tongue." Gu Mingming clenched her teeth and squeezed out the sentence. But Leah just blinked his eyes pitifully, then, "He's sticking his tongue out right now." Gu Mingming patted his chin and Leah bit his own tongue without any warning. His mouth was filled with blood, but he was not hurt at all. In the end, Gu Mingming did not use all her strength. She was teasing and punishing him. Leah looked at Gu Mingming and blinked his long and affectionate eyes. He leaned his shoulder against Gu Mingming's feet suggestively and asked, "Is this punishment enough? Actually, we can punish him even more." Scram. Gu Mingming finally could not take it anymore and roared, "Mighty messenger, please calm down. Mighty messenger, please calm down." Gu Mingming's roar made the tribesmen who had just stood up kneel on the ground again. Aside from the topic, thank you to Xiaoxiang's baby, beautiful loving butler, for the 5 monthly tickets. Chapter 332. Gu Mingming finally decided on Barit and Colin as the guardians of the messenger. In the tribe, other than Elvis, Leah and Sandy, Gu Mingming was most familiar with these two people. There was no need to mention Barit, he was the one who risked his life for her. As for Colin, Gu Mingming had her own considerations. After Barit and Colin received their positions, they stood out from the beast horde and jumped onto the platform of the deity's punishment to stand behind Gu Mingming. Just like that, the newest core leader of Saint Nazir stood on the platform of the deity's punishment. The noon sun was bright and the snow that had yet to melt reflected the light. The crystal-clear snow water that had already melted flowed along the ditches in the snow, becoming the most sacred song of that year. Gu Mingming wore a red firefox fur coat and was carried in Elvis's arms. Leah, dressed in a witch doctor's attire, stood on Gu Mingming's left side. The burly and dignified Barit and Colin stood on the outside of Elvis and Leah without a smile. The 5 of them stood at the highest position in Saint Nazir, the sun behind them giving them a dazzling halo. The 4 cubs did not know what was happening at the moment and chased and giggled beside their parents' feet without a care in the world, adding a lot of vitality to this solemn scene. That day, everyone in Saint Nazir said that they witnessed hope with their own eyes. After coming down from the platform of the deity's punishment, Gu Mingming asked Leah, "Didn't you say you wanted to introduce Ian to the tribesmen? Why didn't you mention this just now?" Leah made a shush gesture and said, "Let's talk about it at my place." Gu Mingming understood that Leah meant that he had other plans and she could not expose him, so she turned to look at Elvis and changed the topic. "How were the results of your first hunt?" Elvis held Gu Mingming's little hand and said, With the protection of the messenger of the beast deity, I naturally gained a lot. Gu Mingming smiled and cupped Elvis's face, asking, "Then, are you full?" Elvis was stunned, so Xiao Ming knew that he did not have enough to eat during winter? That was why she cooked more and more with each meal, then willfully said that she did not want to eat any more and let him finish the excess food. Elvis's heart warmed and he nodded with a smile. "I'm very full." Gu Mingming smiled in satisfaction, then asked again, "Then what should we do next?" Elvis looked at Leah and Leah replied, "The tribe leader has brought back the first prey of the year. Normally, it should be offered as a sacrifice to the beast deity. But since the great emissary is here, I shall offer it to the great emissary." Gu Mingming rolled her eyes at Leah and said, "Can't you speak properly? Lord Emissary, is it fun?" "Great messenger, it was quite fun." Leah grinned and replied. Chapter 333. Gu Mingming and the rest returned to Elvis's cave directly. Previously, discussions were done in the witch doctor's cave, but now that the Eagle Owl tribe was staying in Li's cave, it was not convenient to go over. Moreover, with the messenger of the beast deity, the witch doctor was no longer the closest to the beast deity in the tribe, so naturally, the messenger's residence was the best place to discuss. Barit and Colin stood outside the cave, looking as solemn as door deities. Even if Gu Mingming could not feel it, she knew that they were releasing their beast pressure. The beast pressure of 2 level 2 orcs was not low, but it was not high either. The deterrent effect of their beast pressure was actually limited, but everyone's beast pressure was different. Both of them were now the emissary's guardians, so the purpose of their beast pressure was to tell the people who approached, "The emissary is discussing something, and no one is allowed to approach." Gu Mingming smiled helplessly, patting their shoulders. "Relax, don't be so nervous. This is Elvis's territory. Even if you don't stand there so dutifully, no one would dare to come here to eavesdrop." Barit and Colin looked at each other, then at Elvis. Elvis nodded, indicating that they should go and take care of Gu Mingming. No one would dare to go near the residence of a 4th-level orc. Even if they did, they would not be able to hide from his senses. "Yes, mighty messenger." Barit and Colin replied in unison. Gu Mingming's lips twitched, asking, "Are you two going to treat me like this too?" "Yes, I became the messenger of the beast deity, but I did not do anything to let you two down, right? Are you going to distance yourself from me like this?" Barit did not say a word, but Colin scratched his head innocently, saying, "Yeah, actually it's not distance. It's just that we don't know how to interact with you at the moment. After all, it's our first time being a guard, we don't know what to do." Gu Mingming burst out laughing, pointing at her own nose, saying, "It's also my first time being the messenger of the beast deity, we don't have much experience, so let's not laugh at each other. The main reason why I chose you two to be my guards is because you two are my friends, so I can trust my back to you two. But if you two handle this impartially and draw a clear line between us, I will be very sad. I don't want to lose my friends just because I became the messenger of the beast deity." He recalled that night when everyone was eating the delicacies cooked by Gu Mingming. That day, Oakley asked Gu Mingming why she didn't use the method of storing food to unify the beast world. Gu Mingming said that standing at the peak would make one a loner, without any kin or friends. Colin frowned and asked in all seriousness, "Then, if I still call you Gu Mingming, will others think that your guards don't respect you, so they will also look down on you and act as they please?" Gu Mingming's expression turned serious. But Gu Mingming laughed and asked back, "If the other party respects the title of messenger of the beast deity, then I don't need this kind of respect. If they respect me, Gu Mingming, then even if I call them Zhang San, Li Si, Wang Ermatzi, they will still respect me. Besides," as Gu Mingming said, she leaned into Elvis's arms and said, "If you dare to be so presumptuous in front of me, you have to ask my husband for permission first." Elvis smiled faintly. He liked it when she used her power to bully others, especially when she used his power. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling from Xiaoxiang Academy, little girl who loves reading novels, for the flowers and tickets, and thank you to the little darling from QQ Reading, Red Sandalwood Fragrance, for the 399 reading points. Chapter 334. Gu Mengmeng used the ready-made ingredients at home to cook a huge hot pot. After Leah fed the bone soup to the 4 little ones, they fell asleep like little pigs after an entire morning of wild activities. The 5 adults surrounded the hot pot and chatted while eating. The atmosphere became much more relaxed. Now that there's no one else, tell me, how do you plan to deal with Ian and the rest? Gu Mengmeng asked Leah as she scooped meat into Elvis's bowl. Leah handed his bowl over as well. He had a proud look on his face as if he would not tell her if she did not let him eat the meat. Gu Mengmeng could not be bothered to argue with him, so she scooped a big bowl of meat for him. Leah ate 2 mouthfuls in satisfaction before continuing. I have a premonition that even if we send Nina to participate in this year's beauty pageant as usual, Sauter will not just leave us alone. They would definitely send more people to investigate the situation. So, I plan to hide Ian and the rest first and use them as a secret force for the messenger of the beast deity. Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and said, I would have forgotten if you didn't mention it. Didn't Dumbo already verify my identity previously? The people in Sauter should have already known by now, right? Leah smiled faintly and said, Dumbo's life is not good. He fell into winter before even descending the mountains. I'm afraid he did not make it back alive to deliver the message. Otherwise, the people in Sauter would have rushed here long ago. Gu Mengmeng thought about it and agreed. Sauter was a snow fox tribe and Leah could walk in the snow. If Dumbo's message had really been sent out, he should have arrived long ago. Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, Do you think they will send another messenger over? Leah shook his head and said, No. Huh. Gu Mengmeng looked at Leah in confusion. Leah continued, If the first messenger did not return, Sauter will be on guard. This time, they will definitely not come with great fanfare to ask for the people. Instead, they will use some underhanded methods. Huh? The people from the Snow Fox tribe are used to using such underhanded methods. Gu Mengmeng patted Li's shoulder and said in a serious tone, Big brother, don't forget that you are also from the Snow Fox tribe. But Li's smile dimmed for a moment. Then he regained his amorous smile. No, I am no longer a member of the Snow Fox clan. Immerse. Gu Mengmeng believed that she did not see wrongly. Thinking back to what Dumbo had said previously, her heart skipped a beat. She felt a little embarrassed and did not expose him. Instead, she changed the topic. Then how do you plan to deal with it? Leah chuckled and hooked Gu Mengmeng's chin with his hand, saying, As long as my mighty messenger promises me not to leave the tribe under any circumstances and must bring Elvis and me along when she leaves, then all of Sauter's little tricks will become useless. Why do I need to deal with them? Gu Mengmeng slapped Li's hand away and said, Just say what you want to say, don't keep touching me. Leah sighed. He hugged his large tail and touched it. He muttered to himself, Sigh, back then when you touched my body all over, I let you do as you please. Now you don't even allow me to touch your chin. Sigh, humans are so fickle. Gu Mengmeng really had the urge to bite Leah to death. Damn, couldn't people who had already broken up have some integrity? Was there any meaning in bringing up what happened in the past? Gu Mengmeng glared at Leah and ignored him. She turned around and went deeper into the cave to get some meat. After Gu Mengmeng left, Elvis looked at Leah and said faintly, Why do you have to pretend to be indifferent? You must be very anxious about facing Sauter, right? If you are willing to say it, Xiaomeng. Leah kept his joking face and heaved a long sigh of relief. He forced a smile and said, I want to be her pillar of support and not her burden. Elvis, at least you should understand me. Aside from the topic, thank you to Xiaoxiang Academy's Baby, Wex 1018, for your votes. Chapter 335. When the 4 little fellows woke up, it was already evening. The 5-person meeting had already ended and Gu Mengmeng was sitting beside Elvis, looking at Colin with a sneaky smile. Colin had goosebumps from her smile. He scratched the back of his head and asked, Gu Mengmeng, what's wrong? Why do you keep smiling at me? Gu Mengmeng rubbed her chin and asked, Colin, what do you think of my Sandy? Colin was taken aback by Gu Mengmeng's random question. He thought for a while and said, Why is Sandy yours? Isn't she from the Bode family? Gu Mengmeng slapped her thigh and said, She's mine. Colin was shocked by Gu Mengmeng. He shrunk his neck and did not dare to ask further. He just turned to look at Barit helplessly. Barit, however, turned his head and pretended not to see anything. He had no intention of helping him at all. Gu Mingming patted Colin and said, "I'm asking you a question. What are you looking around for? Answer me, what do you think of my Sandy?" Colin thought about it seriously and answered, "Gluttonous, sleepy and soft-tempered." Gu Mingming hissed and said unhappily, "Do you mean that my Sandy doesn't have any good points?" Colin felt a strong sense of danger. He blinked his eyes and did not dare to say anything. Gu Mingming continued, "Being able to eat is a blessing. Do you understand?" Yes. Colin nodded his head in a naive manner. Gu Mingming continued, "Sleeping more will make your skin better. This is called self-care and self-regulation by a girl. As a female, she has the responsibility to take care of her appearance to beautify the world. Think about it, when a male goes out to hunt and returns home to see his beautiful wife, isn't that a joyous thing? Would you rather see a beautiful Sandy or a necklace Nina when you return home?" Colin fell into Gu Mingming's trap. It was a choice of A or B, and his choice was not C or give up. If it was Leah or Oakley, they would definitely ask, "Why do I have to see both of them when I return home and not Maya or you?" But Colin's brain, of course Sandy is better. Right? Gu Mingming had a look of approval on her face. She stretched out her arm and placed it on Colin's shoulder, as if they were good brothers. She continued, "Think about it again, Sandy's character is a little soft, but don't you think that having a soft body is an advantage? Could it be that you have the tendency to fight and you like Nina's temperament of flipping out at any time and eating people at the slightest disagreement?" Colin shook his head. His movement was so big that wind entered his mouth. Gu Mingming patted Colin's shoulder and said, "That's right, then tell me, is my Sandy a good female?" Colin nodded in agreement. Gu Mingming asked again, "Then why didn't you pursue such a good female? Don't you think you are stupid?" Colin nodded subconsciously. After nodding for a long time, he suddenly realized something and began to shake his head. "Sandy is my sister. You can't pursue her." Gu Mingming was stunned. "What the heck? Forbidden love? You two are from the same mother?" Gu Mingming asked carefully. Colin shook his head and said, "No, but we grew up together. She has always called me brother." Gu Mingming punched Colin's shoulder and said with a face full of sorrow and anger, "You are really damn stupid." Colin was at a loss. He completely did not know what was going on. He could only blink his eyes and look at Gu Mingming blankly. "What's wrong?" Aside from the topic, thank you babies for your love, thank you for your votes and 5-star reviews. Chapter 336. Colin, I always knew you were honest, but I didn't expect you to be so honest. Gu Mingming said with a pitiful face, "Do you know that there's a phrase called childhood sweetheart in this world?" Colin thought for a while, then shook his head, indicating that he did not know. Riding a bamboo horse, circling the bed to play with plums. Living together for 1,000 miles, no grudges between the two of you. Gu Mingming shook her head and recited, then looked at Colin ambiguously. Colin looked back at her in a daze. The 3 words "I don't understand" were clearly written all over his face. Gu Mingming sighed and said, "Have you ever thought about why Sandy treats you so well?" Colin looked at Gu Mingming and asked sincerely, "Why?" "Because she likes you." This answer almost slipped out, but Gu Mingming held it in. Because even if she wanted to say this, it should not come from her mouth. Moreover, as a good bestie, she had the responsibility to maintain her bad friend's advantage and status in the relationship. What the hell was with throwing herself at him? Even if Sandy liked Colin first, she must not let this fellow know. So, Gu Mingming turned around and sat back in Elvis's arms, smiling maliciously. "Colin, I heard that Nina is going to find trouble with Sandy." Colin frowned and asked. Gu Mingming sighed helplessly and said, "Didn't I beat her up again today? She doesn't dare to find trouble with me, so she went to bully Sandy. In the end, it's because Sandy doesn't have a worthy partner in her family. How can Bode and the rest defeat the 20 over partners in Nina's family? Sigh, if Sandy has a strong male in her family, she won't always be bullied by Nina, don't you think so?" Colin thought for a while, then turned to look at Leah and asked carefully, "Leah, how about you consider Sandy? The great messenger said that Sandy is very good." Lee's smile did not diminish, no emotions could be seen in his curved eyes. He placed his elbow on Colin's shoulder lightly and asked gently, "Are you looking down on me because I'm a beast pet?" "No." Colin was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. He himself could not explain why. Leah clearly looked like he was smiling happily, but why did he feel a chill down his spine? Leah turned around and pounced towards Gu Mengmeng. "Sobs, sobs, sobs, Mengmeng, you have to seek justice for me." Gu Mengmeng kicked Leah away and squinted at Colin. Colin did not notice Gu Mengmeng's expression at all. He shifted closer to Barit and hugged him in his arms, asking, "Barit, what do you think of Gu Mengmeng's Sandy?" Barit sneered. Colin's brain had learned to apply what he had learned on the spot, trying to use the same trick that Gu Mengmeng had used on him just now to trick him? Did he think he was in the same situation as him? "Hey, what does that mean?" "Look," Gu Mengmeng said, "Sandy has a soft body and is easy to push down. She is a good female." Barit turned around, looked at Colin and asked, "Since she's a good female, why don't you want her?" Colin pointed at his own nose in a daze, then laughed out loud and slapped Barit's shoulder. "Stop fooling around, I'm her brother." Barit sighed and looked at Gu Mengmeng, then at Colin, who was still smiling foolishly. He thought to himself, "Brother, good luck to you." Chapter 337. Colin was silent, because even though Nina bullied Sandy in the past, it was always Bode and the rest who suffered and never hurt Sandy. But now, Elvis whispered into Gu Mengmeng's ear, "I remember that Nina only left a bite mark on Sandy's finger. It didn't even break the skin, right? And it seemed like Sandy beat Nina up more miserably." Gu Mengmeng poked Elvis harshly with her elbow and rolled her eyes at him. Then she squeezed her eyes and pretended to be sorrowful. "Sigh, if only I was a male. Then I would chase after Sandy and protect her with all my might. Whoever dares to bully her, I would pinch him to death. Unfortunately, I am a female. Sigh, why am I not a second-level male orc? Why is this so?" Elvis looked at Gu Mengmeng in confusion, totally not understanding what was going on. He just felt that Gu Mengmeng was acting unusually today, especially her tone. It was extremely weird. Oh, if Elvis was a modern person, he would know that Gu Mengmeng was acting like a drama queen. Colin looked up abruptly and slapped his thigh. "I'm going." Gu Mengmeng was overjoyed, but she still pretended to be confused and asked, "You? Where are you going?" Colin said, "I'm going to mate with Sandy. I will protect Sandy in the future. I will pinch anyone who dares to bully her to death. I am a second-level orc and a male." Gu Mengmeng clasped her hands in front of her chest. Her expression was pretentious, as if she was acting in a stage play. Her emphasis was also weird, like the Chinese dubbing in old European and American movies. "But, you are her brother," Colin made a sound, then said, "Because I am her brother, I cannot watch her get bullied by others." Gu Mengmeng's face twitched. What the heck? He still treated her as his own brother? Gu Mengmeng had to go all the way. She brought out the acting skills she used to act in children's dramas at the amusement park, exaggeratedly saying, "No. This can't be." Colin tilted his head, asking, "Why?" Gu Mengmeng said, "Because only males who love her wholeheartedly have the right to protect her." Colin remained silent for a moment, then looked up and asked Gu Mengmeng, "What is love? I don't understand." Gu Mengmeng could not continue her act and heaved a sigh of relief. She transformed into a normal person and leaned into Elvis's arms, asking, "If you only have one sweet potato and both you and Sandy are hungry, who is going to eat it?" "Give it to Sandy," Colin said without hesitation. Although Sandy is a half-orc, she is also a precious female. Not to mention that there is still a sweet potato. Even if there is no sweet potato, I will eat Sandy to keep her alive. Another freaking gender difference. Gu Mengmeng asked again, "If someone made Sandy cry, what would you do?" "That depends on who it is." Colin said, "If it's a male, then strangle him. But if it's a female?" Gu Mengmeng pointed at her own nose and asked, "What if it's me?" Colin was silent for a long time and fell into a dilemma. Then he looked up and said, "Then why did you bully Sandy?" Gu Mingming smiled. Because I snatched something she liked. Colin asked again, what is that? I will find you a new one, can't you return the old one to Sandy? Gu Mingming stood up from Elvis's arms and walked to Colin. She used her finger to point at Colin's nose and asked, but what if it's a human? Colin was stunned for a moment, then he drew in a cold breath and said, what? Sandy likes Elvis. Gu Mingming really wanted to spit a mouthful of blood on Colin's face and drown him. Aside from the topic, Gu Mingming, big brother, you must have grown some snacks, Colin. I've grown some, I'm here. Look, I can even jump, it's so warm. Chapter 338. Looking at Gu Mingming's expression, Colin knew that he had guessed wrongly. He scratched the back of his head in embarrassment and smiled. Gu Ming, what are you trying to say? Can't you just say it? I'm not as smart as Leah, I can't guess it. Gu Mingming smiled and said, knowing that you're not smart means that you're not hopelessly stupid. Colin tilted his head and looked at Barit, asking in a small voice, Gu Mingming is praising me, right? Barit sighed and nodded, replying, yes, praising you. I'm so jealous. Colin grinned and chuckled, then there's no use in being jealous, I'm smarter than you. Yeah, you're so smart. Barit turned his head and sighed. While they were fooling around, Elvis suddenly scooped Gu Mingming back into his arms and stood up to walk out. No one asked why, but just maintained their formation and followed him out together. Gu Mingming was dumbfounded, hugging Elvis's neck and asked, What's wrong? What are you going to do? Our sons are still sleeping in the cave, are you just going to leave them here? Elvis turned his head to look at the cave entrance and said, if we can't even protect ourselves, it's better to die cleanly than to live. Huh. Gu Mingming rolled up her sleeves and placed her hands on her hips. Can you protect yourself when you're not even 3 months old? Yeah. Elvis nodded. Gu Mingming wanted to retort, but her words were stuck in her throat. She was actually speechless. After holding it in for a long time, she could not come up with a retort and could only look at Leah gloomily, asking, Leah, why don't you go back and help me look after my children for a while? Leah wagged his big tail and said, don't worry, the surroundings are filled with Elvis's scent, normal beasts would not dare to come close. As for the orcs, who would dare to steal the children of the messenger of the beast deity from the tribe leader's house? But Gu Mingming wanted to say something more, but she heard someone calling her name from afar. Turning back, she saw an anxious Bode. What happened? Did something happen to Sandy? Gu Mingming frowned. Other than Sandy, no one else could make Bode so flustered. Winter had just passed, and Bode's body was a little weak from dieting over the winter. It was still very cold, but he was sweating profusely from running. One of his hands was desperately pointing behind him. The more anxious he was, the more he couldn't speak. Hearing Gu Mingming's question, he nodded furiously. Gu Mingming said, bring me there. Let's talk while we walk. Seeing that Gu Mingming was willing to help, Bode heaved a sigh of relief. He anxiously transformed into a leopard and ran off. Elvis glanced at Gu Mingming and asked, do we chase after them, or return to the cave to see our sons? Gu Mingming glared at Elvis and said, didn't you say our son is safe in the cave? Let's go and take a look first. Chapter 339. Nina wanted to snatch the prey of the first hunt, but Sandy stopped her. Nina then ordered her own males to attack Sandy. Sandy's males tried their best to protect her but could only let Bode bring Sandy back first. Leah arranged Bode's intermittent beast language and told Gu Mingming. Taking 2 steps forward, he stood in front of Gu Mingming and said, Sandy's injuries are not light. If you're afraid, wait here, I'll go in and settle it. Gu Mingming clenched her teeth and sneered, afraid? I'm afraid that Nina, that perverted pheasant, will not die a horrible death. Move aside, don't block me from looking at Sandy. Leah nodded and took half a step back to make a path. Gu Mingming jumped down from Elvis's body. Even if Elvis was the tribe leader, he could not simply enter another female's cave. Other than Gu Mingming, the only other person who could enter as he pleased was Leah the witch doctor. Gu Mingming walked in front while Leah followed closely behind. Elvis, Barit and Colin stood guard outside the cave. They did not speak and just stood guard quietly, each with their own thoughts. The moment Gu Mingming entered the cave, she saw a skinny little bear lying at the corner of the wall. There were many bloody wounds on its body and its flesh was exposed. The blood on its body flowed all over the ground and it had already coagulated, sticking its fur to the ground and making it impossible for her to move. Gu Mingming called out softly, "Sandy? Is that you?" Upon hearing Gu Mingming's call, the little bear raised its head before burying it again, as if it was sad and ashamed. Gu Mingming walked over and stroked Sandy's head gently, comforting her gently. "It's all right, don't be afraid. Leah is already here, he can definitely heal you. Moreover, am I not the messenger of the beast deity? I'm very familiar with the beast deity, I'll ask him to protect you so you'll be fine, don't be afraid." Sandy whimpered a few times and obediently placed her chin on Gu Mingming's leg without moving. Leah had already started treating Sandy's wounds. Sandy was in so much pain that she twitched, but she stubbornly kept her mouth shut and refused to cry out. Gu Mingming's heart ached terribly, but she could not abandon Sandy and immediately run to pinch Nina to death. She had nowhere to vent her anger, so she could only glare at Bode and vent her anger. "Sandy is already so injured, why did you only find me so late?" Bode's heart ached too, but his treatment was not as good as Gu Mingming's. He could not even get closer to check on Sandy's injuries, and could only worry helplessly at the periphery. After being yelled at by Gu Mingming, he was like a high school student who was dragged to the disciplinary director's office by the security guards for being late. He lowered his head and explained, "Sandy said that you are now the messenger of the beast deity and definitely have a lot of things to do. She didn't want us to bother you because of her." Gu Mingming clenched her teeth. If Sandy was not lying weakly on her leg, she would have kicked Bode over. If he did not fall, she would have kicked him again. "Do you have a brain? You can listen to her for other things, but do you want her to mess around when her life is at stake? Let me tell you, Bode, it's fine if nothing happens to Sandy today. But if anything happens to Sandy, I will skin you alive." Bode looked down and sighed. "If anything really happens to Sandy, you won't be able to skin me alive. I will rot so badly that not even my bones will be left because of the backlash from the mating contract." Gu Mingming choked and could not say a word. She snorted heavily and adjusted her tone, hugging Sandy's little head and whispering into her ear, "Silly Sandy, we are good friends. How can you abandon me just because I am the messenger of the beast deity? If I lose you because I am the messenger of the beast deity, then I won't be the messenger anymore. Whoever wants to be the messenger can be it." Aside from the topic, every time Gu Mingming scolded Bode, I always had the déjà vu of an empress scolding a concubine. Chapter 340. Sandy raised her head and whimpered. Gu Mingming looked at Bode and asked, "What did Sandy say?" Bode frowned awkwardly and stuttered. "Sandy said she likes you the most, no matter whether you are the messenger of the beast deity or not. She wants to stay by your side, Gu Mingming frowned impatiently and said, "What, An old man speaking in such a slow manner, can't he even be compared to a mina? He can't even speak properly." Bode lowered his head even more. He did not know why, but he always felt that he was inferior in front of Gu Mingming. "Sandy said she could not protect the first prey she offered to you. Please don't be angry." Leah helped Bode translate the rest of the sentence while sewing up Sandy's wound. Gu Mingming sighed, her eyes filled with heartache. She held Sandy's little face and looked into her dark eyes, saying gently, "Let's not talk about the prey first. You hurt my important friend, how are you going to settle this?" Sandy shrunk her neck. Even though she had a little bare face, she could not hide her shyness. She whimpered and buried her face into Gu Mingming's knees. Leah turned around and looked at the dumbfounded Bode. He smiled and said, "You should be glad that Gu Mingming is not a male, or else. Just based on you, I'm afraid you are not even qualified to be a beast pet." Bode nodded his head in agreement. He then took a step forward and bowed to Gu Mingming, saying, "Great messenger, thank you for not being a male." Gu Mingming sighed, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Seeing that Leah had already stopped, she guessed that the wound must have been treated. She said, "Cut the crap, go and boil a pot of water for me, I want to clean Sandy's wound. Bode said, let me do this kind of thing. Gu Mingming smirked coldly and said, I entrusted a perfectly fine Sandy to you to take care of, but you ended up taking care of me to this state. You still want me to believe you? Bode pursed his lips and could not say a word. He really could not understand why Sandy was entrusted to him by Gu Mingming. He was the one who fought for Sandy when she came of age. Leah pulled Bode and said, bring me to see the other males in your family. Sandy is already so injured. The others are probably in a worse state. I'll call someone to take care of this place later. Leah was halfway through his sentence when he suddenly turned to look at Sandy and asked, Sandy, can I let Mingming's subordinates come in? Sandy called out softly, indicating that she had agreed to his request. Leah winked his left eye at Gu Mingming, then brought Bode out with a smile. Gu Mingming instantly understood and whispered into Sandy's ear, remember, other than pain, don't say anything else later, do you understand? Sandy did not understand what Gu Mingming meant, but she would always listen to her. So he nodded to show that he understood. As soon as he finished speaking, Colin walked in with a big stone pot. Chapter 341. Sandy did not want Gu Mingming or Colin to worry, so she wanted to say that it did not hurt. But when she looked up and saw Gu Mingming winking at her, she recalled what Gu Mingming had instructed her to do just now, so she whimpered pitifully, probably in pain. Gu Mingming had been paying attention to Colin from the corner of her eyes, and indeed, he froze the moment he heard Sandy's voice. She nodded her head silently, thinking to herself, although this fool is slow, at least he has feelings for Sandy. So if she succeeds in matchmaking them, it would be considered as a marriage. So she continued, silly Sandy, if Nina snatches anything from you in the future, just give it to her. Look around you. The best fighter is only Bode, a first-level orc. How can he fight against Nina? Although Quinton, a third-level male beast, is not around, but there is still a second-level orc among Nina's partners, right? You know you can't beat her, so just retreat and avoid her in the future. If she wants to snatch your food, just give it to her. If she wants to snatch your beast's skin, just give it to her. If she wants to kill you one day, sigh, just accept your fate. Sandy tilted her head, completely not understanding what Gu Mingming meant. She did not say that the previous time? Sandy clearly remembered that she had fought with Nina on the morning of the bacon, and Gu Mingming had taught her that if Nina provoked her again, she would directly transform into a bear and slap her to death. Gu Mingming squinted her eyes, and Sandy whimpered softly. Gu Mingming did not need to translate to know that she was saying pain. Gu Mingming nodded her head in approval, then sighed with a heavy heart, and said, from what I see, you should find a chance this year to choose a second-level male as your partner. Don't care if you like him or not, at least you have someone to support you, so that Nina will have to think twice before bullying you in the future. Sandy wanted to say something, but after mumbling a few times, she could only whimper, pain. Gu Mingming muttered to herself, I know. You only mate with males you like, then why don't you tell me, what kind of males do you like? Let me help you choose from the tribe? Or, do you have a suitable candidate in mind? When Gu Mingming asked this, her eyes were fixed on Colin. Although Colin was boiling water with his back facing the two females, his stiff back and ears that involuntarily moved closer to Gu Mingming's side clearly revealed his concern. Sandy was even more confused. Didn't Gu Mingming already guess that she liked Colin in the morning? Why are you asking a question that you already know the answer to? Gu Mingming gave Sandy a look, then acted as if she had suddenly realized something and said, oh, I remember, you said you like males like that, right? Colin was speechless. What did that mean, puzzled? Gu Mingming added, all right, don't worry, I will help you find that kind of male now. With that, Gu Mingming winked at Sandy and moved her little head away from her legs. Then she patted Colin's shoulder and said, I'll leave this place to you. Take good care of Sandy for me. If Nina's partner comes to find trouble with her later, beat him to death. If he dies, it'll be on me, understand? Colin's muscles twitched, he clenched his teeth and nodded seriously. Gu Mingming turned around and walked out of the cave, so that Sandy and Colin could be alone. But she had forgotten one thing, which was that she did not tell Sandy other than pain. She could say anything else. Aside from the topic, Colin, Sandy, are you hungry? Sandy. Pain Colin, Sandy, in the future when Nina bullies you, run away and find Gu Meng Meng or me. I'll protect you, alright? Sandy. Colin, Sandy, I really like you, how about you accept me as your partner? Sandy. Pain. Chapter 342. The moment Gu Meng Meng came out, Elvis went up to her and carried her up. He tore off the wet beast's skin on her feet and placed her feet on his stomach to warm them up. Where are we going? Elvis asked. Gu Meng Meng laughed coldly and said, Nina's house. Elvis frowned. He knew that Gu Meng Meng would not tolerate Sandy's injury any longer. Gu Meng Meng tilted her head and smiled at Elvis. She said, even if you let Nina participate in the beauty pageant, can you guarantee that she will not take the opportunity to announce my affairs to the public? Won't we be in a more passive position then? Instead of avoiding, why not take the initiative to attack? For the beauty pageant, I will participate. While everyone is here, I will announce my identity as the messenger of the beast deity. That way, at least no one will dare to create trouble openly. As for the hidden stab, even if I don't show myself, I won't be able to hide for long. Elvis nodded and did not say a word. Even though Gu Meng Meng's plan was different from what he had discussed with Leah, he believed in Gu Meng Meng and did not need any other reasons. He would do as she said. When Gu Meng Meng brought Elvis and Barit to the outside of Nina's cave, a pungent smell assaulted their nostrils and made Gu Meng Meng frown in displeasure. Before she could say anything, 7 to 8 males jumped out of the cave and blocked in front of Gu Meng Meng. Gu Meng Meng laughed coldly and said, You think you can stop me? The males looked at each other and one of them said, This is Nina's territory. Without her permission, you can't enter. Gu Meng Meng looked as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world. She covered her mouth with one hand and laughed for a long time. She laughed until tears flowed out before she stopped. She glanced sideways and said, I will enter. You can follow the rules of the beast world and treat us as invading enemies to attack. No one will stop you. The males were taken aback and took 2 steps back instead of advancing. They said, You are the messenger of the beast deity. How can you not follow the rules? Gu Meng Meng shrugged and said, You also know that I am the messenger of the beast deity? Then do you know that from now on, the rules of this world are set by me? The male was so ridiculed that he was speechless. He felt that the little female in front of him was like a completely different person compared to when she taught everyone how to preserve meat before winter. Back then, she was as warm as the sun, but now, she was like the sun itself, emitting a heat that could destroy everything. Elvis did not stop and maintained his original speed as he continued walking in. A few males wanted to stop him, but Elvis gave a cold snort and emitted a strong pressure. Those males immediately laid on the ground and could not stand up. Leave this to me, Barit said from behind Elvis. Elvis nodded, retracted his pressure and continued forward. When he reached the entrance of the cave, all of Nina's other partners had already come out. Gu Meng Meng counted, 27. What about the other one? Are you accompanying Nina inside? Gu Meng Meng asked with a smile. Nina's partners were stunned. They did not expect that they would be discovered so quickly. They exchanged glances with each other and decided to guard the cave entrance with all their might and wait for the 28th person to come and save Nina. However, Gu Meng Meng smiled and pulled Elvis's arm. She said, Don't dirty your hands. Isn't Nina in the cave? Just nice, I can summon the flame demon and roast him into a beggar's chicken in the cave. It will save me a lot of trouble and also nourish my Sandy's body at the same time. Aside from the topic, today's update is over. I guess someone is going to say that I'm stuck again? Su expressed her helplessness. The 9,000-word update ends here. I didn't mean to be stuck. Chapter 343. Upon hearing Gu Meng Meng's words, Nina, who was originally hiding in the cave, immediately ran out. The males blocking the entrance all stood in front of her and said to Gu Meng Meng, If you are here because of Sandy, then please punish me. After hurting a precious female, even if I have to go to the platform of the deity's punishment, I have no complaints. However, this has nothing to do with Nina. She has never hurt Sandy. Great messenger, please don't vent your anger on her on account that Nina is a precious perfect female. I wasn't the one who injured Sandy. It's unreasonable for you to want to burn me to death. Also, didn't you want me to participate in the beauty pageant? If you burn my delicate skin, Saint Nazir won't be able to recruit any brave males then. Nina hid behind her male's back and stretched out her neck to shout. Gu Mengmeng covered her mouth and laughed lightly. She said in disdain, the words messenger of the beast deity is not more attractive than a wild chicken like you? You're just a meat bird, yet you think you're a peacock? Nina wanted to retort, but when she saw Elvis's ice-cold face, she could not help but shut up in fear. His gaze drifted into the distance, and he was anxious. Why wasn't that person back yet? Don't bother. I told Colin to keep an eye on Sandy. Right now, he's fuming with rage. Unless you send your level 2 Beastmaster, you might have a chance to fight him. Gu Mengmeng glanced at Nina and smiled. With your level of selfishness, you definitely won't let your strongest partner leave your side. Otherwise, who would risk their lives to hold Elvis back so that you can fight for a chance to escape when I charge over here? Nina was stunned. Nina's heart turned cold. She could not understand how Gu Mengmeng guessed that she would think of using Sandy to threaten Gu Mengmeng. Actually, it was not that Gu Mengmeng had such incredible foresight, it was just that she had seen too many palace fights, so she still had to guard against such tricks. Moreover, her real purpose of keeping Colin was for them to cultivate their relationship. Gu Mengmeng was very surprised that Nina would use such an obvious tactic that was just short of setting up a sign saying, I'm going to kidnap Sandy. She thought that, even though Nina was dumb, she would not be so extraordinarily dumb. It seemed that she had underestimated Nina's stupidity. Gu Mengmeng patted Elvis's shoulder and asked, how long can Nina's partners drag you out? 1 or 2 seconds? Elvis did not know how long 1 second and 2 seconds were. He just raised his head and kissed Gu Mengmeng's little hand gently. Close your eyes. Gu Mengmeng did not understand, so she closed her eyes. Feeling a jolt in her body, she panicked and opened her eyes. The moment she opened her eyes, she was already in front of Nina. Nina's partner was lying 3 to 5 meters away. He should not be dead yet, but it was obvious that he could no longer move. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng with one hand while his other hand hung down naturally. Fresh red blood dripped from his fingernails onto the ground, as if he was the god of death, emitting a dark and terrifying aura. But Gu Mengmeng was not surprised by this. She had seen Li's skills before and knew that the difference in levels in the beast world was absolutely irresistible. The 3rd level Leah only took 3 seconds to defeat Nina's partner. The 4th level Elvis, if it wasn't for Barit who was behind them, he would probably just need to release some pressure and they would all be lying on the ground, unable to get up. Out of topic. Babies, January will be over in a week's time, the tickets don't need to expire. Susu is so cute, give me the tickets, roll on the ground and beg for love. Chapter 344. Elvis reached out his hand and strangled Nina's neck, but Gu Mengmeng patted his shoulder, signaling him to stop. Elvis sighed and slowly put down his blood-stained hand. He looked down at Nina, who was lying on the ground and panting like a fish that had been beached, preventing her from doing anything to hurt Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng knew the reason why Elvis sighed. Although she could not understand, she clearly knew that Elvis and Leah were jealous that Barit had once gone to the platform of the deity's punishment for her to a certain extent. It was as if Barit had proven his feelings for Gu Mengmeng while they did not get such a chance. This logic was very strange, but now was not the time to explain. Gu Mengmeng patted Elvis's shoulder and said, "Put me down." Elvis frowned and said, "There's no hide on your feet, the ground is cold." Gu Mengmeng smiled and said, "It's all right, let me down." Elvis's gaze landed on the puddle of blood on the ground and he frowned. Gu Mengmeng saw it too, but she nodded at Elvis, indicating that it was all right. Elvis could not dissuade Gu Mengmeng, so he took 2 steps back and tore off the hide dress from one of Nina's partners. He tore it into 2 and carefully wrapped it around Gu Mengmeng's feet before letting her down. After Gu Mengmeng landed on the ground, she walked towards Nina with slow and pressuring steps. "You instigated Quentin to assassinate me, but it didn't work anyway, so I can ignore it. You found trouble with me from time to time, but it's harmless, so I can ignore it. You sold my information to the people of Sauder, but it can't be kept a secret for long, so I can ignore it. You claimed to be the most beautiful female in the tribe and pestered my man, but my man did not like you, so I can ignore it. You even threatened to kill my son, but you don't have the ability to do so, so I can ignore it. But you hurt my best friend. I can't let you off. When Gu Mengmeng finished her sentence, one of her feet had already stepped on Nina's shoulder. Leaning forward, he stepped on her firmly on the ground. I am the female of Saint Nazir. Our tribe has its rules. People of Saint Nazir cannot kill people of Saint Nazir. Nina had never been so afraid. It was not the first time Gu Mengmeng had hit her, but she had never seen such an obvious murderous intent in her eyes. That small body seemed to have the power to rule the world. Only when she looked up to him did she truly understand what it meant to be the messenger of the beast deity. You are from Saint Nazir? Gu Mengmeng laughed coldly and said in a low voice, but I am a deity. Gu Mengmeng stepped on Nina's shoulder with one foot and stepped on Nina's face with the other, forcing the side of Nina's face to stick to the ground. Her neck was forced to be exposed. Gu Mengmeng bent her knees and bent into a bow stance. She grabbed Nina's throat with one hand and strangled it fiercely. She sneered, your neck is really too thick. Even if I use both my hands, I can't wrap my arms around it. So, let's make it simpler, how about that? Nina instantly suffocated. Her face turned red, and she couldn't make a sound. She didn't understand why Gu Mengmeng, who looked so weak, was closer to death when she was strangling her than when Elvis was strangling her neck with his big hands. Fear caused her eyes to widen and her face to look ferocious and terrifying. She used both her hands to grab around, trying to pull Gu Mengmeng down from her body. But with just one flop, before she could even touch Gu Mengmeng's clothes, both her hands were pinned to the ground on both sides of her body. Her wrists were broken and they were embedded into the depression in the ground in a weird position. Aside from the topic, are you nervous? Is it exciting? Where's the ticket? If I don't have the ticket, I will have to say, listen to the next episode? I lied to you 5 minutes later, next update. Chapter 345. Gu Mengmeng raised her head and met Li's smiling eyes. He stretched out a clean hand towards Gu Mengmeng like a gentleman, waiting for Gu Mengmeng to pass her little hand to him. He placed the blood-stained hand behind his back and said gently, she is not worthy of dirtying your hand. Leave it to me, all right? Gu Mengmeng shook her head and looked at Leah and then at Elvis, saying, me killing her is the oracle, the mandate of the heavens. If you guys do it, you will be breaking the rules of the beast world and will have to go to the platform of the deity's punishment. Li's smile did not diminish and he said, your oracle is also the oracle and also the mandate of the heavens. Gu Mengmeng frowned but did not know what to say. You are abusing your authority, you are abusing your authority to take revenge. I am a complete female, the beloved of the beast deity. If you treat me like this, you will be punished by the beast deity. Nina seemed to be extremely afraid and started shouting incoherently. But she did not know that such shouting would only make her die faster. Gu Mengmeng knocked on Nina's Adam's apple with her knife hand and Nina instantly started coughing violently. Breathing became a problem, not to mention talking. Gu Mengmeng squatted down and looked at her coldly saying, don't you know? The beast deity is the father beast. I am abusing my authority and taking revenge on him. These are all taught by him. Obviously, Gu Mengmeng was spouting nonsense. However, Nina believed him. Mengmeng. Leah used his clean hand to carry Gu Mengmeng up gently and stared into her eyes, saying, can't you let me be the first person to carry out the execution according to the oracle? Gu Mengmeng looked into Li's eyes and it was as if she could see an indescribable pain and struggle in those eyes. The only outlet to vent his anger was himself. Gu Mengmeng recalled what Elvis had told her about Li's past. He came from Sauder, which was the tribe of the previous messenger of the beast deity. He was the 9th highness who was banished for unknown reasons. His heart was filled with hatred but he did not mention a word about his past. If the oracle of the messenger of the beast deity could free him, then why was she still hesitating? Gu Mengmeng slowly stood up and took a step back, leaning back into Elvis's arms. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng up steadily and placed her on his shoulders. Gu Mengmeng lowered her head slightly and stared into Li's eyes. She reached out a hand and placed it on his forehead. As the messenger of the beast deity, I bestow upon you the right to execute and punish Nina. Li knelt down on one knee and used his clean hand to hold up Gu Mengmeng's little foot. He brought it to his lips and kissed it gently, while his other blood-stained hand was placed on his chest, painting a dark red cinnabar on that white chest. Elvis did not let Gu Mengmeng see how Leah carried out his punishment, because she should not have to experience those unpleasant scenes. Elvis and Leah exchanged glances before leaving with Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng knew that Elvis and Leah were not willing to let her see their brutal and tyrannical side, and she also did not have any desire for violence. From the bottom of her heart, she did not really want to kill Nina herself, even though she was just a wild chicken and could transform into a human form. If she really saw her die under her orders, Gu Mengmeng would still feel guilty. So when Elvis brought her away, Gu Mengmeng did not protest and did not turn back. She only needed to wait. Wait for Leah to come back and tell her what the oracle meant to him, and why his gaze had such a complicated and heavy foundation. Aside from the topic, I can tell you very responsibly that Nina received her bento box. I did not describe the way she died because she was so lowly that she was not worthy of my words. Babes who still feel that your anger has not been vented, please use your imagination and imagine the various scenes of Leah torturing and killing Nina. There are only things that you can't imagine, but there is nothing that Leah cannot do. Chapter 346. When the sky turned fiery red and the moon slowly climbed up the mountain peak while the sun was still longing for the beautiful scenery of the world, Leah returned to Elvis's cave with the afterglow of the setting sun on him. He walked in front of Gu Mengmeng with one knee on the ground and placed his right hand in front of his chest. He lowered his head and said, "Reporting to Great Messenger, Nina's punishment has been completed." Gu Mengmeng pulled Leah and said, "Leah, are you willing to tell me your story now?" Leah raised his head and looked at Gu Mengmeng while maintaining his kneeling position. He did not return to his senses for a long time. "Leah?" Gu Mengmeng called his name again, but Leah suddenly smiled. He smiled in a flirtatious manner and said, "Sure, as long as you mate with me, I will tell you all my stories." Gu Mengmeng suddenly felt her heart ache. No matter if Leah said coldly, "None of your business," or talked about a tragic life story sorrowfully, Gu Mengmeng was already mentally prepared for it. But Gu Mengmeng suddenly wanted to know why Leah, who was filled with hatred, would always smile so elegantly. That smile, was it just a camouflage? He tried his best to hide his emotions and used such a cynical attitude to face the pain of the past. Was it because, if he did not do so, he would not be able to bear it? Gu Mengmeng lowered her head. She was asking herself, if she forced Leah to tell that story, would she be able to bear the consequences? Because of her curiosity, she tore open Li's fatal wound. So what if she saw it? What was she going to use to soothe it? What was she going to use to heal it? Sighing, Gu Mengmeng smiled and said, "I won't force you if you don't want to say it. But if one day you want to confide in me, I will always be here." Leah was still smiling. He swung his big furry tail and said, "Looks like I am not completely unloved as a beast pet." Gu Mengmeng smiled cooperatively. She did not reply or refute. "Beast pet, huh?" Gu Mengmeng smiled and said. She would just treat it as a Samoyed being raised at home. One day, when Li's inner demons were resolved, he would naturally go to search for that vast world. By then, as the messenger of the beast deity, she would not be able to keep him. With Li's intelligence, it was too easy for him to get rid of his pet beast. At most, he could just give him a new identity like in the movies. Wasn't he the one in power now? It was still possible for him to create a new identity for Leah. However, he could only try to bluff them with his mouth. Leah stood up and took a strand of hair from each side of his ear and tied it behind his head. As he did so, he said, "Oh, right. When I came back from Sandy's place, Colin asked me to ask you, what kind of male is that?" Gu Mengmeng was taken aback for a moment before she smiled knowingly. "That blockhead has been enlightened?" Leah considered for a moment before nodding his head. Sandy is in a lot of pain. She won't say anything other than pain. Colin's heart ached so much that he said he wanted to stay by Sandy's side forever to protect her. But when he confessed to Sandy, Sandy only cried out in pain with red eyes. She cried especially miserably. Gu Mengmeng face-bombed. She thought to herself, Sandy, you and Colin are really a pair of enemies. Shaking her head helplessly, Gu Mengmeng smiled bitterly. How do you feel about Sandy's injury? Can she participate in tonight's ceremony? Leah nodded. It should be difficult for her to walk on her own. But if you want her to participate, I can ask a few males to carry her over. Aside from the topic, the disgusting fellow is gone. Next, we will be handing out candy. Say, what kind of CP do you think Sandy and Colin should be called? How about CP for disco? Huh, such an ancient name. Chapter 347. Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, all right, find a few reliable ones and don't tear Sandy's wound open. Leah nodded and asked again, for tonight's campfire party, is it really all right to do as you say? Gu Mengmeng smiled slyly and said, I am the messenger of the beast deity. When it comes to playing with fire, who could be better at it than me? Leah also smiled and nodded in agreement. He then said, then I will go and arrange it. Gu Mengmeng said, Sai, call Colin back and tell him that I want to tell him what that kind of male is. Leah agreed and said, all right. After Leah left, Gu Mengmeng pulled Elvis back to the cave and found 2 leopard skins for Elvis to make a new set of clothes for her. Elvis didn't ask much and just did whatever Gu Mengmeng said. When Colin came back, Gu Mengmeng was already standing in front of everyone in the cool leopard print outfit. Colin looked at Gu Mengmeng and twitched his lips without saying a word. Gu Mengmeng said, just say what you want to say. Colin pointed at Gu Mengmeng's clothes and said, the beast skin you are wearing is so weird. Gu Mengmeng sked and said, what do you know, this is called fashion. Colin shrugged his shoulders. He didn't know fashion, he only knew food. Gu Mengmeng didn't pursue the matter and just hooked her finger to beckon Colin to come closer. Then she whispered into his ear, later on, you will be like this. Hey, do you understand? Colin blinked his eyes and looked at Gu Mengmeng with a face full of question marks. Gu Mengmeng slapped his chest harshly and said, do you want to mate with Sandy? Colin nodded seriously and said, yes. Gu Mengmeng said, then do as I say and don't talk nonsense. Colin nodded seriously again and said, all right. That night was the first time Saint Nazir hosted a real campfire party. There was no killing between members of the same tribe and no staining of the mahogany tower with fresh blood. There was only the warm glow of the fire and the alluring aroma of the large amount of food. Sandy was arranged to be in the position closest to Gu Mengmeng, even though Gu Mengmeng had yet to appear. Sandy could only lie there in a daze, staring at the flames like a bear. Bode brought the roasted meat to Sandy's mouth. She didn't even open her mouth to take it. She just shook her head absent-mindedly and continued to stare blankly. Suddenly, a loud thud startled everyone. Bode's first reaction was to protect Sandy as he looked around cautiously. Dong dong. Another 2 strong and powerful voices rang out. These voices were very unfamiliar, but they made one's blood boil. Following the direction of the sound, 2 people walked out slowly from behind the fire. One of them was a 2-meter-tall burly man carrying a strange thing in his arms, while the petite figure walking in front of him was Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng was wearing a leopard print horizontal bra. In order to cover her overly feminine 30-60 breasts, she had specially designed the bra to be a bandage style, making it look like a little war prince. She gave up on wearing a skirt for her lower body and instead wore a pair of shorts that reached the middle of her thighs and knees, lengthening Gu Mengmeng's legs. Other than the bra and shorts, Gu Mengmeng's sleeveless cloak was the most eye-catching. It made a loud noise in the wind, and under the illumination of the fire, she looked like a deity from another world, carrying a mission, hope, and a fatal temptation that made one unable to shift their eyes away. Aside from the topic, yes, Gu Mengmeng was prepared to flirt with a mistress in front of her husband. When Gu Mengmeng met Sandy, she felt a hormonal change. Was it an illusion? Chapter 348. Colin placed the thing in his arms according to Gu Mingming's instructions. Everyone did not know what it was, but upon closer inspection, it seemed to be a cross-section of a tree trunk, half the height of a human, with a layer of what looked like deerskin on top. Gu Mingming had 2 wooden sticks in her hands. One end of the wooden stick was the size of a fist, wrapped in animal skin. Gu Mingming flipped herself onto that strange thing, then handed the 2 wooden sticks in her hands to Colin. She stood on the piece of wood wrapped in animal skin, raised her feet high, and jumped, dong. A loud sound, like the roar of thunder. The scene was silent, and everyone's gaze naturally gathered on Gu Mingming. She lifted her cloak with one hand, and the cloak fluttered in the wind amidst the firelight. She lifted her right foot, and when it landed again, another loud sound was heard. If you don't like to listen to my song, please close your ears. Next, I'm going to start a massacre and pierce through your eardrums. Gu Mingming raised her hand, and Colin used the 2 wooden sticks to knock on the deerskin. The opening of the outliers was full of vigor, and everyone's attention was on Gu Mingming, as if they were so shocked that they could not move. Her body did not emit any so-called pressure of a powerhouse, but it made everyone forget to even breathe. I'm fearless, let all my opponents have a taste of it. Follow me, follow me, follow me and scream as loud as I can. After Gu Mingming finished singing the sentence, Colin transformed into a bear, roaring at the sky. Although the rhythm was not quite right, the effect was extremely good, adding an authentic wild element to the song, making it seem even wilder and more unruly. As orcs did not have any concept of rhythm, Gu Mingming originally tried to teach Colin to sing with her, but he really could not control any tone other than roaring. Hence, Gu Mingming could only settle for the next best thing. She agreed on a few actions with Colin, and as long as Gu Mingming performed this action, he would use the wooden stick to knock on the deerskin. With this kind of cooperation, it was considered a tacit understanding. When Gu Mingming finished singing the last sentence with all her might, the sound of tearing. Then, she took a wooden stick from Colin's hand, jumped up high and hit the deerskin heavily. After a deafening sound, Gu Mingming panted heavily and sat sideways at her original spot. She stepped on the edge of the deerskin with one knee bent and the other leg hanging down casually. One of his hands was placed on his bent knee, while the other was holding a wooden stick, which he carelessly tapped on the center of the deerskin, making a slow but clear sound. Colin followed Gu Mingming's instructions and carried the weird thing that could make a sound along with Gu Mingming, before walking to Sandy, who was lying on the ground. Gu Mingming winked at Sandy with her single eye and smiled rather mischievously. Taking a deep breath, he slowly began to sing, "You are my queen, ruling my planet." Sandy's dark and bright eyes stared at Gu Mingming without blinking. From her smile and gaze, Sandy clearly knew that this song was for her. Gu Mingming stood up and knelt on the ground with one knee. She placed her right hand on her left chest, just like an ancient European knight, exuding a strong and seductive aura of hormones. "Raise my hand and place it on my chest, swearing my loyalty to you." Gu Mingming sang, danced and flirted at the same time. Not only Sandy, even the males at the side were dumbfounded. Their faces were red and their hearts were racing. They felt as if their eyes were filled with blood. They really wanted to step forward and say, "Let go of that bear, come at me if you dare." Digression. The first song was Su Guiyang's version of Aliens, and the second was Luo Zhixiang's My Queen. I will share these 2 songs in the QQ group for everyone to listen to if you are interested. Besides, Chapter 349. When she sang the last line, "My dear queen, the night is waiting. Please follow me step by step to the throne of love." At the same time, Colin knelt down on one knee in front of Sandy, just like how Gu Mingming did at the beginning, like a Roman warrior swearing his loyalty. He stared at Sandy seriously and sincerely. "I, Colin, am willing to pledge my loyalty to you, to protect you in the name of a knight, for a lifetime, for a lifetime." Sandy had yet to return to her senses from Gu Mingming's teasing. Her expression was a little dazed and she did not know what was going on. She just felt that Gu Mengmeng was exceptionally attractive today. Even Colin seemed to be more charming than usual. Gu Mengmeng hugged Sandy's little head and whispered into her ear, "Nod." Sandy still did not understand what was going on, so she nodded according to Gu Mengmeng's words. Then she saw Colin suddenly stand up, raising both his hands up high and roaring in excitement. Sandy was first shocked, but soon after, she understood what was going on. Her face heated up and she turned to look at Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng smiled and patted her little head, saying, "This man is yours." Sandy's face turned even redder, her furry paws on Gu Mengmeng's arm not letting her go. But Gu Mengmeng smiled and kissed Sandy's head, saying, "Now, I'm going back to find my man." With that, she patted Sandy's little hand, retracted her arm and stood up. Passing by Colin, Gu Mengmeng punched his chest, saying generously, "My Sandy is still injured. Be gentler." "I know." Gu Mengmeng shook her head, looking at Colin's honest and serious look, thinking to herself that he was indeed handsome for no more than 3 seconds. Luckily, she had taught him to memorize that confession beforehand, or else when Sandy recalled Colin's proposal in the future, she would probably only remember, "Sandy, I love you." Gu Mengmeng did not even manage to jump twice before she was lifted into the air. With both feet off the ground, she instinctively wrapped her arms around that person's neck. Tilting her head, she indeed met with that pair of familiar and deep eyes. Smiling sweetly, Gu Mengmeng asked, "Hubby, do I sing well?" Elvis kissed away the beads of sweat on Gu Mengmeng's forehead. His lips curved upwards and his eyes were filled with deep affection. His tone was sour. "What position do I have in your heart?" Why do you ask?" Gu Mengmeng asked, finding it funny. "How long have you neglected me because of those 4 wolf pups?" Elvis inched closer to Gu Mengmeng's ear and wanted to bite her in anger, but in the end, he just sucked on her earlobe lightly. "Ha, Aya, stop fooling around, it's ticklish." Gu Mengmeng chuckled as she begged for mercy. She snuggled into Elvis's arms and said, "There's a famous person from where I came from who once said, the so-called father-daughter relationship only means that your fate with him is to watch his back view disappear into the distance in this lifetime. You stand at the end of the path and watch him disappear at the corner of the path. He uses his back view to silently tell you, don't chase, don't chase. Children will eventually grow up and have their own families. One day they will leave us and we will also grow old one day. How can we not cherish each other while we still have each other now? Don't you agree?" He then narrowed his eyes and said, "But today, because of Sandy, you left the 4 of them in the cave for an entire afternoon. Now, the sky is already dark." Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis and said, "But today, for Sandy, you left the 4 of them in the cave for an entire afternoon. Aside from the topic, I'm so busy today in Sandy and Colin's wedding, I'm giving out wedding sweets in the VIP group." Chapter 350. Gu Mengmeng felt a little guilty and shrunk her neck, saying, "Didn't you say that our cave is very safe and the children will be fine at home?" Elvis smiled. "I said, the wolf cubs are more important than me, Sandy is more important than the wolf cubs, what about me? In your heart, how many people are more important than me?" Gu Mengmeng wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and kissed his face hard, saying, "Nonsense, Sandy is important, the babies are important, but you are the most important. In my heart, there is no one more important than you, not a single one." Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng and sat by the side of the burning wooden pagoda. His pale blue eyes looked an ambiguous orange because of the firelight. He raised his eyebrows and played with Gu Mengmeng's fingers, saying, "Nina seduced me in front of you, but not only were you not angry at that time, it seemed like you even wanted to make space for her." Gu Mengmeng recalled that something like that happened when she first arrived at the tribe, but Nina came looking like she was the official in charge of catching an adulterer. Who the hell knew if there was something going on between the 2 of them? If they didn't make space, would they have to buy tickets to watch? Did they? Why don't I remember? Elvis answered with certainty, then sighed. "But once Nina bullied Sandy, you immediately rushed up to stand up for her. In order to help Sandy, you even threw yourself to the ground and acted pitiful." Gu Mingming's mouth twitched, saying, "It's all in the past, why are you still holding a grudge? Don't bring up the past. As a man, a wolf must be more broad-minded. It's a waste of brain cells to keep remembering small things in the past, isn't it? Right?" Elvis nodded as a form of agreement, then said, "Let's not talk about the past, let's talk about the present." Gu Mingming smiled apologetically, saying, "Yes, let's talk about the present. Life is so beautiful now, look, hugging a soft and fragrant body. It's the glory of a wolf's life, isn't it?" Elvis laughed coldly, saying, "Sandy has 2 songs, one of which you have sung twice. But I only have one, and I've only heard it once." Gu Mingming face-bombed. She continued Baidu Bai Qi. Question, hubby is easily jealous, and it's 1,000-year-old vinegar, how should I deal with it? Can I add some soy sauce to balance it? It's urgent, I'm waiting online. Elvis continued to speak slowly in a low voice. Moreover, you are especially gentle towards Sandy. She will hug you whenever she wants to, but the moment I touch you, you will hide from me. Gu Mingming coughed twice, choking on her own saliva. She really wanted to ask Elvis, doesn't your conscience hurt saying such things? When Sandy hugged her, it was really just a hug. Have you ever been obedient when you were hugging her? Think about how your 4 sons came to be. If she didn't hide, she would die on the bed. Via sang, she's your queen? You want to serve her? And protect her happiness? Elvis's face darkened even more. He was clearly near the fire, but he was so gloomy that ink could drip from his face. Gu Mingming smiled awkwardly and wrapped her arms around Elvis's waist, saying, "Who said I don't want you to hug me? Aren't you hugging me now? Come, hug me all the time, all right?" The corners of Elvis's lips moved slightly. He raised his chin and tightened his arms, encircling Gu Mingming. He took a deep breath and looked at Sandy, just short of writing the words, "I won," on his face. Aside from the topic, Gu Mingming. Question, hubby is easily jealous and always fights with his best friend and son, but he keeps giving the green light to his ex-boyfriend. What should I do? It's quite urgent. Netizen question, I feel that your hubby giving the green light to your ex-boyfriend might be cheating on you. Chapter 351. Saint Nazir was in a frenzy for that night's revelry. Other than Gu Mingming, Colin was the most popular person. Although he only stood behind Gu Mingming and did some manual labor, his only line was the one where he proposed to Sandy, but it still caused a sensation. Deep in the night, Ian leaned against a tree and looked down at the revelry with an indifferent expression. Leah sat beside him and handed him a piece of roasted meat. Do you mind if I don't let you show yourselves? Ian didn't take the food from Leah. Instead, he fixed his gaze on the bashful figure in the leader's arms. That tiny figure had attracted everyone's attention the moment she appeared. It was as if she had a magical power that no one could resist. Is she really the messenger of the beast deity? Ian seemed to be doubtful and muttering to himself. Leah smiled. The food that allowed your tribesmen to survive the cold winter is still not enough to prove her identity? Ian didn't say anything. Why should he reply? Food, singing and fire. Retracting his gaze, Ian glanced sideways at Leah. This is the reason why you were so confident back then? Leah nodded. The birds are the ones who yearn for the beast deity the most, isn't it? The arrival of the messenger means that all the birds in the beast world will flock to her. Once her identity is known, would there be anyone who would come to seek shelter? Ian nodded. Leah was right. The tribes that soared in the sky yearn to be close to the beast deity the most. Since that's the case, why did you choose us? After all, there are only 32 of us left in our tribe. Leah smiled. His gaze landed on the little figure who was playing around in Elvis's arms. She's a little willful and is the most unstable factor in all my plans. In order to deal with her sudden whims, I need to have more bargaining chips in my hands. Only then can I ensure that nothing goes wrong and let her be willful to her heart's content. Ian was taken aback for a moment. Then he laughed. So the Snow Fox tribe also has affections. I thought you guys are different from normal orcs and would not change because of females. Snow Fox tribe? Leah savored this form of address and smiled faintly. This tail is probably the only useful thing left to me by this tribe. With that, Leah did not bother about Ian anymore. He transformed into a fox and started running in the dark. His goal was clear and distinct. Ian stood on the spot, holding the roasted meat left behind by Leah in his hands. He watched as the white figure dashed through the night sky to the side of the bonfire and shamelessly waved his large tail in front of the little female to beg for her affection. His lips curled upwards as he said, "Messenger of the beast deity, Gu Meng Meng." 3 days later, Gu Meng Meng packed her luggage and prepared to leave the beauty pageant. She had wanted to bring Sandy along to play, but Sandy's injuries had not fully recovered. Chapter 352. According to tradition, other than the partners of Sandy and Maya, the tribesmen of Saint Nazaire should follow the females who were participating in the beauty pageant. Firstly, it was to protect the prettiest female in the tribe. Secondly, if they met someone they fancied in the beauty pageant, they could just follow them. But this time, the situation was a little special. None of the males who followed them wanted to change tribes. Instead, they were all here to protect Gu Meng Meng with their lives. Originally, there were only 130 males in the tribe. Because of Nina, they lost over 40 males in one go. Although they did not have the mating mark and did not need to die even if Nina died, but no matter what kind of female Nina was, she was still the love of their lives. After Nina died, they sealed Nina's cave and buried all of them alive in the cave. Out of the remaining 80 over people, excluding Sandy's 9 partners and Maya's 15 partners, they could only bring out 60 over people. Gu Meng Meng also left Oakley and Barit in the tribe. One was smart and the other was strong. They could be considered as the imitation versions of Elvis and Leah. With the 2 of them in the tribe, together with the males from Sandy and Maya's families, there should be no problem in looking after the house. Gu Meng Meng originally wanted to bring all 4 of her sons along. But Elvis and Leah told her that the journey was long and bumpy. Other than meeting normal wild beasts, they might also meet stray beasts. If they met with danger, they would only protect Gu Meng Meng. If Gu Meng Meng wanted to bring the 4 little ones along, and if an accident happened, this was definitely a blatant threat. Gu Meng Meng clenched her teeth. In the end, she did not dare to bring her 4 sons along. So, she handed the 4 little ones over to their future mother-in-law, Sandy, to help take care of them. She especially instructed Sandy not to act out any restricted scenes in front of her children. If she were to lead her sons astray, she would break off all ties with them. After a day's journey, although Gu Meng Meng was carried or hunched by Elvis like an empress dowager and did not get off the ground at all, she was still extremely tired. Nestled in Elvis's arms, Gu Meng Meng frowned and said, "Sigh, what kind of lousy beauty pageant is this? Can I not go? Why is there no internet in this broken place? Why don't we just open a live broadcast and sing and dance at home? Just send out the location and we can choose whoever we want. That's it. I'm so tired." Elvis also felt sorry for Gu Meng Meng. In the past, when he sent Nina to the beauty pageant, she started complaining the moment they left the tribe. Unlike Gu Meng Meng, who only grumbled in his arms before falling asleep after walking for an entire day. "Tomorrow we'll walk slower. If you're tired, you can tell me anytime, we can rest anytime." Elvis kissed Gu Meng Meng's little head and said gently, "Sleep, I'll guard you." "Yeah." Gu Meng Meng found a comfortable spot in Elvis's arms and slowly fell asleep. Her thick eyelashes fluttered once in a while, and under the gentle moonlight, she looked like a fairy. Elvis stared at Gu Meng Meng's sleeping face. He did not even know how gentle he looked. He lightly caressed her little face with his hand, and the delicate touch on his fingertips made Elvis a little restless. Gu Meng Meng moaned and shook her head, as if she was unhappy that someone had disturbed her sleep. Just this small action caused the fragrance on her body to spread out in waves, making him even more mesmerized. Elvis could not help but recall the day they mated. She also fell asleep like this, in his arms, defenseless. That day, she had tormented him to the point of no return. Although he finally got what he wanted, but during the time she was asleep, thinking about this, Elvis's body started to heat up, as if a ball of fire was burning uncontrollably in his body. It started from his chest and slowly moved downwards, stopping at his lower abdomen. Aside from the topic, there are 3,215 words of extra material, which was shared in the VIP group. Babies who have already entered the V group, please take it yourself. Babies who have not entered the VIP group, please join the reader group, 492779273 to verify the fan value. Babies who have a fan value of 800 can be added into the VIP group by the administrators. Chapter 353. When Gu Mingming finally woke up from her dream, she realized that she was lying on Elvis's back and moving forward in the forest. The landform here was completely different from the place she had fallen asleep at. Rubbing her eyes, she sat up and asked, "How long did I sleep for?" Leah handed over a fruit that looked fresh and especially tempting. Gu Mingming took a bite and it was so sweet that she felt like she was surrounded by happiness. Leah looked at Gu Mingming's satisfied look and his gaze became gentle. He patted her head and said, "You have slept for a day and a half. How are you? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Gu Mingming shook her head blankly and instantly understood what Leah was saying. Her face turned red and the fruit that she had just swallowed got stuck in her throat, causing her to choke and cough. Leah carried Gu Mingming up and used his knee to push against her stomach. He then patted her back and Gu Mingming forcefully coughed out the fruit stuck in her throat. Her face was already extremely red. Elvis transformed into human form and took Gu Mingming from Lee's arms. He pried open her mouth and looked at her throat carefully. He sighed and said, "Be more careful next time and don't choke again, understand?" Gu Mingming nodded obediently and passed the fruit to Elvis. "Try it, it's really delicious." Elvis shook his head lightly and said, "This is for females to eat. It can alleviate the discomfort after mating." Gu Mingming was instantly petrified. The fruit in her hand no longer looked tempting. Instead, it was like a bomb that had started its countdown. She wanted to throw it, but was afraid that it would explode the moment it touched the ground. "It's all right. Anyway, everyone knows that you have mated for a day and 2 nights, so you don't have to be shy. Just eat it." Leah smiled as he pushed the fruit to Gu Mingming's mouth. His smile was especially gentle, but there was an obvious cold glint in his eyes. "I heard that your throat was hoarse from all the yelling that night. Eat some fruits with sufficient moisture to nourish your throat." Damn it, it shouldn't be a mistake to do OXX with her own husband, right? Why did she feel like she was being dragged to be paraded on the streets after having an affair? Gu Mingming turned her head and buried her face back into Elvis's chest, grumbling softly, "I told you we can't do it outside. Look at you, so annoying." Elvis straightened his body and hooked Gu Mingming's chin with his finger. His brows unknowingly touched together and he looked at Gu Mingming with a hurt expression. "Did I make you feel embarrassed?" Gu Mingming was taken aback. She shook her head and said, "What nonsense are you saying? How can I let others know about this kind of thing? How embarrassing." Elvis stared straight at Gu Mingming, his eyes filled with tenderness. His voice was low, as if he was a little sad as he asked, "On the day we mated, you said you wanted to announce our relationship to the world. Was it all a lie?" Gu Mingming really regretted not letting the fruit choke her to death. Elvis seemed to lack a sense of security in certain aspects. It was as if he always felt that Gu Mingming would abandon him anytime. Gu Mingming did not know where Elvis's feeling came from, but she had experienced this kind of uneasiness before. Chapter 354. Elvis then smiled and kissed Gu Mingming's forehead gently. "You slept for a day and a half and did not eat anything. Are you hungry?" Gu Mingming rubbed her tummy and nodded with a smile. Elvis said, "Stay here and wait for me. I'll go hunting." Gu Mingming held onto Elvis's arm, unwilling to let go. She looked at the 60 tribesmen guarding at the side and said, "Let them go. Can't you stay here and accompany me?" Elvis gently stroked the stray hair beside Gu Mingming's ear and said, "I have to prepare your food myself, because I don't want to give others the chance to fawn over you." Gu Mingming bashfully punched Elvis's chest and said with a red face, "Annoying." Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's lips and said, "Wait for me. I'll be back soon." If you meet with any danger, just hit our mating mark hard and I'll rush back. Gu Mengmeng nodded obediently and said, "Then take care of your safety." Elvis smiled and agreed. Then he whistled and a few hunting experts followed Elvis into the forest. Leah arranged for people to gather materials to start a fire and draw water to prepare for roasting meat. He swayed his furry big tail and leaned towards Gu Mengmeng. He supported his chin with his hand and looked at Gu Mengmeng from the corner of his eye. Gu Mengmeng remained silent for a while and turned to look at Leah. She said, "Thank you, Gu, for that night." Leah raised his brow and asked, "Which night?" Gu Mengmeng blushed and lowered her head. She fiddled with her fingers and said, "You used the fox seductive fragrance on me, right?" Leah was a little shocked, but only for a moment. He did not deny it and only said, "You found out." Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, "Thank you for helping me reduce the pain. I don't need it in the future." Leah was puzzled and asked, "The fox seductive fragrance only made the mating process between you and Elvis smoother. Other than adding some interest, it won't affect you much. Instead, it will make you suffer less. Why not?" Gu Mengmeng smiled shyly. She thought for a while before replying, "No matter how painful or sweet the process was, it is still a precious memory between us as husband and wife. The fox seductive fragrance makes me lose control of my mind, as if someone is controlling my body to hug Elvis. This feeling makes me very uncomfortable." Lee's smile froze for a moment before he nodded. "I was being a busybody. I'm sorry." Gu Mengmeng shook her head and smiled. "I don't mean to blame you. It's quite refreshing to do it once in a while. However, the novelty between husband and wife was just a temporary adjustment. True feelings for each other were the long-term solution. So, please don't use the fox seductive fragrance on me anymore, okay?" Leah pursed his lips and smiled faintly. "That won't do. Even if I don't want to use it when we mate in the future, I won't be able to control it." Gu Mengmeng knew that Leah had purposely said that to hide his disappointment. He should have already understood that between her and Elvis, there was no place for him. Not exposing him was Gu Mengmeng's last kindness to Leah. Standing up, Gu Mengmeng sat beside the fire. Her gaze drifted towards the direction where Elvis had disappeared to. She cupped her chin and waited for the silhouette of the black wolf to return. Elvis and the rest did not leave for long. It was just that when they returned, there was an uninvited guest in their group. When Gu Mengmeng stood up to welcome them, she saw half a head peeking out from behind Elvis, looking at her timidly. Moreover, there was an eyesore hand clutching tightly onto the edge of Elvis's beast-skin dress. Aside from the topic, has Meaty finished watching? If you have, remember to vote for your ticket. Without the ticket, the next meal of Meaty would be so far away. No, this is not a threat, this is, not a friendly negotiation. Chapter 355. Gu Mengmeng frowned, but before she could say anything, she heard Elvis glare at the person who was grabbing her hide dress coldly and said, "I warned you before, don't touch me." "I'm sorry. I'm just too scared." That person was scared out of her wits by Elvis. She hurriedly let go of her hand and took a step back, looking like she was about to cry. It was a pity that Elvis did not even look at her. Elvis heaved a heavy sigh, his face full of displeasure. Looking at his beast skin dress that had been scratched, he was in a terrible mood. Gu Mengmeng finally saw her full appearance after the female took a step back. Her dark green hair was draped over her shoulders, and she was wearing a simple hide on her upper body. It looked like it was torn and looked like it was going to fall at any moment, unable to cover her impressive fullness. Her lower body, snake? Gu Mengmeng was calculating in her heart, this pose, should she kneel down and worship 3 times, offer a joss stick and say, "Goddess Nuwa," or should she stand on a rock with a gourd on her head and shout, "Vixen, return my grandfather"? Although the bullet screen mode had already been activated in her heart, Gu Mengmeng did not show any expression on her face. She pulled Elvis's pants in front of her and tidied up the hide that was slightly crooked because of the stranger's gentle pull. Her eyes were focused on her hands and she asked in a neutral tone, "Hubby, who is she?" Elvis sharply felt Gu Mengmeng's anger. Although he did not know why, He knew that Gu Mengmeng was definitely angry. Could it be that Gu Mengmeng was hungry after being out for too long? Yeah, that must be it. She would not be in a good mood once she was hungry. Thinking about this, Elvis hurriedly explained, "Are you hungry? Don't worry, I have hunted a lot of prey and I have already asked Darch to handle it. You can eat it soon." This was a rule that Elvis and Leah had personally set for Gu Mengmeng. All prey was not allowed to be brought back whole. After the male hunted the prey, he had to first use his claws to cut off the better meat and store it in his hide bag. Then he would finish off the meatless and hard-to-chew parts in the wild. After returning, he must first clean the food prepared for the female before bringing it back. He was not allowed to deal with the prey in front of the female, nor was he allowed to let the female know what the prey of the day was. However, the males would remember the meat that the females said was delicious and would find more for them in the future. Unfortunately, Elvis had misunderstood the main point. Gu Mingming's hand was still on Elvis's pants, but she looked up and stared at Elvis's face, asking, "Let me ask you, who is she?" Elvis looked back blankly at the terrified female standing not far away and said, "I picked her up on the road." Gu Mingming laughed coldly and said, "Tribe leader is really good at picking. First, you picked me, then you picked her, Kitty. Females aren't that valuable in the beast world, yet you've already picked two of them so casually." Elvis was stunned for a long while before he suddenly laughed and pulled her into his arms. He asked excitedly, "Xiao Meng, are you jealous?" "You're jealous, aren't you?" "You're jealous." Gu Mengmeng felt as if someone had stepped on her tail and she exploded, "Eat your head." "I'm not." Elvis stiffened and sighed in disappointment. Every cell in his body was expressing his disappointment and he said in a low voice, "Oh, I thought you would also mind if other females get close to me, just like..." Elvis's gaze drifted towards Leah. God knew how jealous he was of Gu Mengmeng rushing over to snatch Leah and Nina away when she knew they were going to mate. If one day, Gu Mengmeng could also be jealous because of him, how good would that be? Chapter 356. Gu Mengmeng cleared her throat and pinched Elvis's waist harshly. She crooked her finger and gestured for Elvis to come closer. Although Elvis felt uncomfortable, he still obediently moved closer, thinking that Gu Mengmeng wanted to whisper something to him. In the end, Gu Mengmeng grabbed his ear and twisted it harshly. She placed one hand on her waist like a female yaksha and shouted, "Yes, I am jealous, so what? Let me tell you, Elvis, if you don't tell me who she is today, see if I will let you off." Ouch, 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 pain, 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 pain. Elvis laughed as he cried out in pain. He looked a little silly but was completely different from his bloodthirsty self in the forest. That female took a step forward and pulled Elvis's arm lightly, saying, "This beautiful little female, you have misunderstood the great tribe leader. He just saw injustice and saved me. There is nothing between us." Gu Mengmeng let go of Elvis and grabbed the female's wrist that was pulling Elvis. She twisted it outwards and it was a simple female self-defense technique. She easily twisted the female's hand behind her back and leaned against her back. She whispered into her ear, "I am a clean freak, especially when it comes to men. Whoever dares to stretch their claws towards my man, I will make sure that she will not be able to return." That female turned her head and a cold light shone in her eyes. If Gu Mengmeng was not so close to her, she would not have noticed it. She only used a moment to retract her gaze and put on a pitiful look, saying, "You have really misunderstood me. There is really nothing between the great tribe leader and me." Sob, sob, sob. "Why do you have to bully me like this? My hand hurts so much." Gu Mengmeng laughed coldly and thought to herself, "Wow, you have some skills. All right, since I am bored, I will play with you." So Gu Mengmeng used her hidden strength to push the female forward. She seemed to be anticipating Gu Mengmeng to do that, even her falling motion looked especially gentle and graceful. But what she did not expect was that Gu Mengmeng landed on the ground earlier than her, falling below her. "Xiao Meng." Elvis dashed over like a gust of wind and pushed away the female that almost fell on Gu Mengmeng. He scooped Gu Mengmeng into his arms and examined her carefully. Leah reached Gu Mengmeng's side almost at the same time. He looked at the broken skin on her knee and turned his head, his long and narrow eyes filled with murderous intent. No, it's not like that. That female was prepared to fall down, so even if she fell down, she would not be badly injured. But after being pushed by Elvis, she fell down hard. She had wanted to gain sympathy, but when she looked up, she met Lee's murderous eyes and was so frightened that she could not even speak properly. Sob, sob, sob. Elvis, you have a change of heart, haven't you? Gu Mingming's punches landed on Elvis's chest like raindrops. Even with eye drops, it was obvious that she was faking her tears. But her clumsy acting made Elvis's heart ache and he felt wronged. Other than shaking his head, he could not explain himself. He wanted to look at the wound on her knee, but she stood up stubbornly and limped forward. Her shoulders trembled as she said, "You brought a female back from the outside and pestered her in front of me. I only asked her who she was and you allowed her to kill me?" Sob, sob, sob. Elvis, you don't want me now that you have a new lover, am I right? Aside from the topic, author, Gu Mingming, did you graduate from an acting academy? You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.